All right. We are having some fun today. My goodness. Uh, wow. Technical issues are so fun. They are my very favorite thing. We're having some serious technical issues. You guys are going to have to just endure listening to the built-in mic on my laptop because for whatever reason, uh, the gods have decided that the good studio mic is not going to do its thing today. It's cool. We're not really doing anything today that requires you to really hear um, super awesome audio quality. As you can see, we've got an RTA hooked up here, and actually I should say the RTA is here. Where'd it go? There it is. I make a terrible weather girl. So what is an RTA? It's a real-time analyzer, and as you can see, it allows us to look at frequencies and decibel levels. So what we're going to talk about today is everybody's always asking us, what is the most silent violin you've got? Yamaha's got this silent violin. That's what I want. I want something silent so I can practice. Well, silent. My wife is a doc, and she tells me that in the operating room that sterile is relative. Okay, they let everybody breathe in there, so sterile is relative. Well, silent is the same way. Silent is relative. There's no such thing as silent. There's really quiet, but silent is a thing. It's a weird thing. So we're going to learn a little bit about the physics of sound, and then we're going to play a bunch of violins, and you will get to see. I'm actually going to adjust this down a little bit. Oh, there we go. Change the scale. So you'll be able to see what the different violins that we carry, some of them are more silent than others. Okay, so the first thing I want to do, let's look at this RTA right here, this real-time analyzer. One of the first things that I want to tell you, you'll see scrolling across the bottom, is that D decibels, this is on a logarithmic scale. So something that is 80 dB is actually twice as loud as something that is 70 dB. And it's perceived loudness. Man, if you try to get into... there's a lot to this. How far do I want to go into this? Let's just talk about perceived loudness, because that's what matters today, is what is the perception of loudness. Perceived loudness, 10 dB is going to sound twice as loud. So 80 dB is going to sound twice as loud as 70 dB. So me talking here, you're seeing is in, the 70 to 75 decibel range. If I were to bring that down, say I'm going to talk quieter. I'm at, 55 decibels now. That's actually 4 times quieter. If I go to 65 dB, this is really hard to do. If I go to 65 dB, that's going to be half as loud as if I go to 75 dB. If I'm really projecting my voice, that's twice as loud. All right, the other thing to notice as we're looking at this thing, you'll see at the very bottom, that scale where you see 32 and 63 and 125, that is... those are frequencies, hertz. So I touched this thing, which moved that over. All right. So when you see that 63 hertz, that's down like where a kick drum is going to punch you in the chest. And then it comes up to 125 hertz, 250, 500 there. Remember that an open A string on a violin is 440 hertz. So that's going to be in that area. Let's grab a violin and let's pluck an A string. See that bar come up right there? Now there are overtones to a violin. It's not just 440 hertz. That sine wave, if you just punched a 440 hertz sine wave there, then you'd see that one frequency spike up and everything else would stay nice and flat. But it would also sound super synthetic. So you'll notice all of these frequencies are popping up as I'm talking, and as I'm playing, you're going to see a bunch of frequencies popping up. It's because violins have overtones to them, and that's what gives them their very distinctive tone. So you're going to see that there are different strengths popping up for each one. Say if we play, let's just play an A note. That's what an A looks like on a violin, and I'm going to pull this thing down a little bit more. Acoustic violin. This is an acoustic electric violin. This is a Golden Tasman. So this is not going to be quite as loud as, say, Rachel Barton Pine's Guarneri. That thing's a cannon. So this is going to be a little quieter than a really nice acoustic violin, but obviously quite a bit louder than an electric violin. So let's just play this real quick, and let's see what sort of volume levels we can experience with this instrument. And you can see where all those frequencies are going up and down, right? So one thing also to know about frequencies is that the higher the frequency, the higher the sound, the higher the tonality of the sound, the less penetrating power it has if we're talking about going through walls. So say you live in an apartment and you're worried about disturbing your neighbors. You want to see if you're trying to get a violin that's going to have less penetrating power, it's not going to be loud for your neighbors. You want to see more high frequencies and less low frequencies. So if we're comparing two violins that are reading, this 73 or 75 dB that you see is a weighted average. That's what A means, dB A scale. It's an A weighting system. We don't need to go into all that, but A is the weighting system. So it's a weighted average of all of these frequencies that you're seeing. But 80 dB is not necessarily the same as 80 dB. So if you've got 80 dB with a bunch of highs in it and 80 dB with a bunch of lows in it, your neighbor's going to hear the one with the lows because those low frequencies can push through their walls and the high frequencies cannot. Think when you go to a big music festival and you're standing, a half a mile away from the stage, all you can hear is the bass and the kick, right? Boom, 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 boom. It's because those low frequencies can throw really far and high frequencies don't. It's the same thing when you're talking about your walls of your apartment or the walls of your house if you're trying to practice at night. So just because one violin is at 75 dB and another one's at 75 dB, you really need to see this scale and see the ones with the higher frequency average are actually going to push through a wall a little bit less, okay? And I got so much equipment on this stand, it's drooping. All right, so I'm going to raise it back up. We were getting down a shadow height there.
Hey.
Guess who's here today? All right, so I do want to, let's do this. Let's come over to this screen. So I want you to look at the RTA in the bottom, and you'll see that blue number there. And then across the bottom, we've also got scrolling. What are some common household items and maybe how loud those things will be, just so you've got a frame of reference for what you're listening to, okay? I'm going to play this violin, and I'm going to play it fairly quiet. I'm going to play it a little louder, and then I'm going to really dig into this thing and see how high we can get, because I want to see how loud I can get. This one won't go quite as loud, like I said. If we had a really nice acoustic violin in here, Rachel Barton Pine can get her violin well up over 100 dB without a whole lot of trouble at all. She's really digging into it. But let's see what this one will do. so if I was digging in, I could get this thing into the 90s relatively easy. Excuse me. Again, a classically trained violinist on a really loud violin, soloist level violin can get up over 100 dB. So that is what your acoustic can do, and that's why when you're practicing at home, the neighbors are like, yo, we're trying to sleep, dude. And you're like, okay, sorry. So you're thinking, gosh, maybe I should get a silent violin. I should get a Yamaha silent violin. So let's grab a Yamaha silent violin. Here's one right here. This is an SV255. We got our Nesto here, Shaq is here, Lago's here. What's up, everybody? Good to see you guys. So same bow. We got the same meter, same distance away. If I really push, I can get that into the mid-70s, about the same as me talking, right? But you'll notice as you're looking at here, you see where my voice has, and my voice does not have a lot of lows in it for a dude. I got a high, scratchy voice. But you see where the meat of those sounds are in my voice. And then let's see here. So if you can talk in your apartment and you're not driving your neighbors crazy with your voice in the 70 dB range, then that's about where this violin is going to be, even if you're really digging in. Most of my practice isn't going to be there, right? I'm not going to be playing that hard. Right, so we're going to be closer to 60, which is quite a bit quieter than me talking. It's actually twice as quiet. It's only half of the volume of me talking, and you've got the extra added benefit that this doesn't have nearly as many low frequencies in it as your voice does. So the sound of this instrument is much less likely to penetrate through walls than your talking does, okay? That's a beautiful thing about an electric violin. So people ask, well, Yamaha says they're the silent violin. What does that mean? Does it mean they're any quieter than any other violin? Let's find out. So let's grab a Stratton violin. Okay. Okay, so maybe it's a little bit louder than an SV250, a few dB. It's not a huge difference. So far, the SV255 does appear to be one of the quieter of these two instruments anyway. But again, even with the Stratton violin, it is still way, way quieter than an acoustic. All right, let's try another Yamaha. And don't get all excited about seeing a YV hanging on the wall. This is Susie's personal instrument. Still out of stock on these for a few more days. Hopefully Yamaha is going to be able to come through for us. by the numbers, the YEV is the quietest one we've tried yet. Working pretty hard to get into the low 70s on that. All right, let's try another one. Let's try a Glasser. A Glasser is a special case because a Glasser is an acoustic electric instrument. People often ask us about the Glasser. So I can get this into the upper 80s without a whole lot of trouble. Or if I'm going to be just sort of hanging out. All right, that is a Glasser acoustic electric. What else? What else? Oh, I do want to say, we do tell people that most solid body electrics are going to be in a relatively tight window, with the exception of this guy. The bridge violins are quite a bit louder. And because they are hollow, they've got this hollow body. Bridges are going to be a little bit louder, as you guys can see on the numbers there. Let me adjust this thing down a little bit. We're going to be playing some more quiet, more quieter. These violins are going to be more quieter. 3D various. I'm really not a very good player without a shoulder rest, but I'm too lazy to grab one. Missed. So yeah, this is a super, super quiet violin. I had to really work just to get this up to about 70 dB. .3D various, super quiet. Oh, what else? I'm a Viper guy. Let's talk about Vipers. Let's talk about this Viper. This one just came in. If you guys don't know, the general deal on Vipers is that they are back ordered. Each one of these is custom made, handmade, and due to a long series of circumstances we've talked about 100 times, these things are back ordered more or less a year from the time you put down a deposit to the time you get one. This one, however, got orphaned somehow, in the production process. Whoever was going to buy it for whatever reason is not going to buy it, and it is available. 7-string. It's got this beautiful satin finish on it, which I really, really like the satin finish. That is stinking cool. And it's a 7-string fretted Viper, available right now, $49.49, so not cheap. This thing will probably not be here more than a day. We started calling people that are on a waiting list. Hey, do you want to change your mind about the color that you wanted? You could have the color you want 8 months from now, or you could have this one today. So somebody's going to pop on this thing like right away. If this is something you think you want, okay? Oh, look at that low note. That's nice. So lots and lots of quiet instruments. You can see as I'm talking, I'm in the 70s, maybe pushing 80. The instrument says you're sort of hanging back. If you're just hanging back and practicing, 50s and 60s aren't hard to achieve. If you're really diving into these things, you can get 70, maybe a little higher. Let's pick up a Jordan, since there's one laying here. If you got a Jordan laying around, you should definitely pick it up. Those are the numbers on the Jordan. You guys can all see for yourselves. What else? What else do we want to try? Let's try an Aurora. So, I'm not always lazy. I'm just mostly lazy. Let's throw a shoulder rest on this. Pretty much all in the same range is where we're finding these, with the exception of the bridge. Yeah, we're finding that these are all going to be in the same range. So when people ask, like, how loud is an electric, the answer is not very. They're not very loud. Sort of as we see scrolling across the bottom now, more like an electric toothbrush, about the volume of an electric toothbrush. So you guys can see if you've got questions about a specific model that you want us to try. You can dump it in the comments section, and I'll play it here in the next minute or two before we log off. But yeah. Oh, Zeta. Of course. What am I thinking? What am I thinking? Of course, I'm gonna play a Zeta.
Zeta!
Okay, good question. NS. Let's grab an NS. So yeah, right in the same range as the rest of them. Bridge, we already played a bridge, but I'll do it again. And the reason is the bridge is going to be significantly louder. We tell everybody this, it is going to be a lot louder. Yeah, bridges are quite a bit louder. Cantini. I knew you'd ask. Let me go grab one. Just a second. We don't really have one ready. This is a 5-string. It's only got 4 strings on it. And I don't even know it's in tune. But let's try it. So, yeah, same neighborhood as the other ones. Yeah, Harlow, I meant to tell you before, we're not going to be talking about stage volume and ear protection today. This is like the opposite of that. This is the discussion on unplugged violins. How loud is an unplugged violin for when I'm practicing and I want to know if I'm going to drive my neighbors crazy. The bottom line is most solid body violins, with the exception of the bridge violins, are about in the same range. They're pretty quiet, like way, way quieter than an acoustic violin. Here is a relatively quiet acoustic violin because it's an acoustic electric. So not only is this quite a bit louder, but you'll also notice a lot more low frequency sounds in this instrument. When you'll notice is we're looking at the RTA there, the electric violins are not pumping nearly as much energy into those lower frequency bands. And those low frequency bands are the ones that are pushed through your neighbor's walls, and they're the ones that make the phone ring. So, yeah, I guess that's more or less what I have to say today. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to take them. But yeah, so we've got acoustic violins are going to be the loudest. Acoustic electrics are going to be down a little bit. The Glasser violin is a little bit quieter than some of the others because the carbon fiber doesn't push quite as hard. And then bridge violins, and then pretty much the rest of the solid body electrics are way, way, way quieter. And remember, a 10 dB difference is half. So if something is 65 dB and something is 55 dB, the 65 is twice as loud as 55. It'll be a doubling in perceived volume. So yes, that is the live stream for today. That's pretty much all I got, guys. So I hope you had a good time. Hope you enjoyed yourself. Next week, we are hoping, speaking of Vipers, we're hoping, so stick with me. Everybody throw vibes or prayer, whatever you do, that we are going to have some new Vipers in the shop. We've got this one 7-string that'll be gone in like a few minutes probably. But we've talked about, let's just go into it since we're at the tail end of this thing. Let's get rid of this guy here. Bye-bye. And let's get by this too. That's better. So here's what happened with Vipers, and we'll probably talk about this a little bit next week too. About 2 years ago, there were two guys working in the wood violin shop. It's Kenny and Joe, right? Best friends, roommates. They work together. These guys hang out all the time. We were all out at the NAMM show in California, and Kenny got a call that he needed to come home because his grandfather had passed. So he left NAMM early to go home. And unfortunately, as Kenny was making some arrangements for his grandfather's funeral, he was also killed in a car accident. So Kenny's family lost him and his grandfather within a day or two of each other. And Kenny was like a brother to us. We hung out all the time. The electric violin community, Kenny was just a real integral part of that family, especially the wood violins family. So losing him as a brother and a friend was a serious punch in the gut to all of us. He was young. But losing him as a part of the wood violins manufacturing team is sort of a kick in the gut to everybody who didn't know him. Again, there were two guys making those violins. Obviously, Joe loses his roommate and his best friend and his, the guy that he works with. He didn't even walk into the shop for probably 2 months. And then we've got to go through the process of finding somebody to, you don't really replace Kenny, but we got to find somebody to take his role. And that takes time. So we found Jillian Festa, who's amazing. Jillian is an incredible woodworker, and she is working for Wood Violins now. It takes a little time to get her up to speed. She's not able to make violins at the same speed that Kenny was right off the bat. So during all this time, when people aren't working, while we're looking for Jillian, finding Jillian, training Jillian, all this time here, violin orders are piling up. Because Vipers are super, super popular, as they should be. It's what I play. Everyone should play a Viper. They're amazing. I love the instrument. It doesn't scratch everybody's particular itch, of course, but it scratches a whole lot of our itches, and they are very, very popular instruments. So the whole time that all this stuff is happening, orders are piling up. Now we're in the process of trying to dig out of that hole. And not only are we trying to make some violins fast enough to get these orders filled, we're also trying to hey, let's rethink this process. Rather than bringing somebody in and teaching them the way Kenny was doing, why don't we say, is there a way that we can streamline this process beyond what it was so we can kick these things out even faster? So part of our energy is going into building Vipers, and part of our energy is going into streamlining that process. Unfortunately, that doesn't help the backlog shorten. So right now you're looking at a little over a year from the time you put down a deposit on a Viper to the time you get one in your little hands. However, some of the energy that we've put into saying let's streamline this process is now paying off. The shop is going to continue to hand make one-off every custom-made Viper. Okay, every custom-made Viper is completely handmade from scratch. Each one is going to be just a little bit different, just like those jeans that you got from the store. Hey, each one's a little different because these are each handmade. So custom Vipers are still going to be all 100% made in the shop in New York. But we now have production Vipers that some of the pieces of that are done more in an assembly line style process, and then they're finished by hand at the Wood Violin shop. But we're able to crank those out a lot faster. That's going to do two things. It's going to increase the supply of Vipers that are not custom Vipers. We'll call them production Vipers. Production Viper, we should be able to crank those things out relatively quickly. And it's going to take some of the load off the custom shop. So we're hoping that this allows us to decrease the waiting time significantly from the time of people order a Viper till the time they get one in their hands. Production Vipers are going to be a little bit limited. One of the things that takes so long to make a Viper is there's so many different configurations. 4-string, 5-string, 6-string, 7-string, fretted, fretless, either with a Barbera pickup or a True Tone. You start multiplying those things out, there's a lot of SKUs there. Production Vipers will be either 4 or 5, only True Tone pickup, no Barberas in the Production Vipers, and only red or black. Those are your choices. Now, we're supposed to get some Production Vipers in this week. I'm going to get my hands on them this week. I've already played one, but I haven't gotten to play any of the ones that are coming to our shop. I've played some of the prototypes. So the hope is that next week I'm going to have some Production Vipers in here, and we're going to do a live stream. We're going to get Mark Wood himself in here on a Skype call, and he's going to be able to talk about the Vipers. I'm going to be able to talk about the Vipers, and we're going to be able to show you this is a Production Viper. These things are going to be available 4-string and 5, red and black, True Tone only, fretless only. But we ought to be able to get these things circulating through here pretty fast. And so that'll make those Vipers available. So we're freeing up the time that the custom shop has to be making stuff like this one right here. Oh, this thing is pretty. It really is. Okay, so that's a long story on that. Hopefully the plan is that hopefully next Wednesday we're going to be talking about Production Vipers. Okay? You guys be safe. Don't get the Rona. Do what you're supposed to do and be cool. We'll see you next time.